There we are.
Here we are.
Here we are. We're back at it here. I've got a kitty in my lap today, Lauren.
Well, I was going to say, welcome back to the Green Glow Healthcast and give you like that real recorder type of a voice. But I like the idea of just kind of opening up to, I have a cat on my lap. How's everyone else doing? Look at
I
that
know. I
sweet
wish I
face.
could see my sweet Blue sitting here with me. I was just
Yeah.
telling you, she's grounded right now from going outside. So she's like acting really, really extra with me. Like, are you sure you want me inside? Let me
Yeah.
just be up in your business and then maybe you'll send me back out again.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yes, cats and groundedness. Well, we are sorry I messed up your dance intro, your song intro.
My song intro? What do you
Yeah.
mean?
Well, I was talking about the cat and you were going to sing a song and
Yeah,
or do you ever
no.
have?
No one needs that. No, they need who one needs that. Like I could kind of go into salt and pepper like as needed if anyone
Okay.
does need a little bit of salt and pepper, but
Okay.
um I can make a lot of weird noises, but song I do not have the gift
It's not
of.
one of them for you.
No.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Well, it
Yeah,
sounded like you were getting like a song singy into the anyway
I was having a moment. Well, I
moment.
do sometimes I go into like Fievel if ever anyone's seen what is
Yeah.
Fievel's the little mouse that goes on a journey. I can't think of what
The
his movie.
American, it was like the American mouse or something. No, that's not it. Somebody out there is like, it's this.
Yes. Well, and that's the song Somewhere Out There.
Yeah.
I will go into like I know plenty of Little Mermaid songs. I know all of them. And if I do start singing, one of our cats comes running up and like basically sticks her nose in my mouth because she's so worried about me because I'm making horrible, painful noises to a cat's ears. So they come running and check in to see if I'm okay. So that's your first sign to know you probably don't have the gift of song if you scare the domestic animals.
So true.
I can dance though. I can bust a move and dance like no one is watching
Yes.
anytime. I'm fine with that. But to
That
sing is to hurt others. Don't do it.
Well, for our listeners' benefit, we'll pause on that for now, just so that we keep people listening. If you are joining us, we appreciate you, and we don't want to hurt your ears.
Exactly. Lauren's not going to sing. Don't
Okay.
ever worry about.
Okay. Well, thanks. Thanks for being here. We're here for episode 2. We're very excited about continuing to share and kind of moving right along here, talking about all things heart health for this particular month, but also getting to know each other a little bit better. You know, Lauren, you and I have gotten the chance to know each other pretty well. But of course, for those of you listening in, Lauren and I want to make ourselves more available and let you get to know us better. Hopefully, at some point, you guys will also get to let us know who you are as listeners and as members of our communities. We're setting up some things now, already wanting to expand a little bit. So we are setting some things up to make that possible in the future. But for now, we're going to kind of do a little deep dive into our lives and get to know us a little bit better, just so that while we're laying this framework, this foundation of the green glow lifestyle, who are we? Why are we here? Why we care? Why should you care about
Mm-hmm.
about this about this world, about our world? So that's what we're here for today.
Mm-hmm.
But first, I was going to ask you, Lauren, what did you do today to move your body and to take care of your heart?
Boy, well, I wish I could say it was more, although I
Sure.
shouldn't lead with that. Mostly I'm saying it should be more because it is like 45 degrees here in a February in Minnesota, which is exciting and not because really it should be snowing and Mother Nature should be having her way with us right now up here as we are due, which is going to happen next week. Here's the tease about living in the north is you get one day of hope for the spring. You get one day of hope and then it goes right back to blizzard and sideways wind and ice and that kind of thing, which is fine. But it's sunny. It is still to get to go outside to sit in the sun for a second and to kind of soak it in. I'm immediately more active on days where I just see that the sun is shining and I want to go outside in the middle of the day. I sit less. And every increment of that does matter. And we can translate that to heart health, right? But there's a couple of things that I want to hit on is that if you enjoy the sun and it helps you become a more active person, that in itself is feeding two birds with one scone, as I like to say, because it is relaxing. Yeah, we're feeding two birds with one scone if we can get ourselves outside and sit in the sun, because there's a stress relief in that, and it helps to reset your day. So if you've been looking at like 45 emails and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be working until midnight, that's not the frame of mind that you want to sit in all day long. So you've got to remove yourself from that, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. I was able to do that today because I actually made about an hour of time up. And it happened to be that the cats were like, let us out right now or we're going to make you pay for it. So I did that and got to get outside with them and realized, gosh, this feels amazing. I needed that. So
Yeah. Well, you
that's
sent
what
me
I
the
did.
cutest picture of you outside, and I really feel like I wish we should post that onto
The
this
cheers to
episode.
the sun with my
Yes,
coffee cup.
cheers to the sun. It was like glowing, like seriously, talk about glowing. You were like glowing in the sun's beautiful rays, and it was a great picture. So maybe we'll post that up on our,
Yeah, it's kind of
you know,
helpful. We have our house is like bright white, and then our detached garage is bright white. So it's just blinding out there when the sun is coming in. But that's just a kind of a reminder to everybody that it's not this all or nothing thing all the time. And we are surrounded by people that are all or nothing thinkers, I think, in the health space, because it's a feeling that you get like, I have to do everything right. I have to do everything in this moment to be able to hit my health goals. And actually, the full circle perspective is all these little things are what add up to that successful, healthy outcome.
yeah,
So that's kind of how I look at my whole day now. And I'm having a great blood sugar day on top of it. So it's
fantastic.
just kind of, yeah, right. It's
Love
just kind of
that.
like, okay, just
Good.
you're not that big of a deal, Lauren. Just go outside and relax. I think that's sometimes
Yeah.
the way I look at email is all these people need my attention. And I'll tell
Mhm.
myself, you're not that big of a deal. You don't have to get on this right away. Nobody needs you that bad. So
Yeah. Well, but
just chill.
also good reminder. And, when it comes to our heart health, stress management is a huge, huge part of that. You were attending to your cortisol levels, you're attending to your vitamin D levels. Vitamin D plays a very important role in all hormone transportation. So maybe your vitamin D boost gave you slightly better glucose uptake ability, and now your glucose is more stable.
If there's anything I've learned, it's how I said it on the last episode. I think it was ingestion is connection. Everything is absolutely connected. This is why people have walking groups. They get together.
Hmm.
I can attest to the power of group fitness. You're about to tell
Hmm.
us a story about that. I know it's
Hmm.
coming.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't do anything miraculously sweaty today,
Yeah.
and that's okay because
Yeah.
tomorrow and Saturday I will be doing miraculous sweating
Yeah.
with
Oh my gosh.
teaching my spin classes. So
Yeah.
yeah, it all kind of factors in as what can you do today to be caring of yourself.
Hmm.
Typically translates to heart health as it is.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, care, love, care of self-care, all of those things are part of again, like creating a lifestyle that really hits all of our being, our physical, our emotional, our social, our psychological well-being. All of these things are important. And, regulating your vitamin D levels in the winter in Minnesota, I'm sure is a really important part of that mental health and psychological well-being. So good for you. I love that.
Thank you.
You
Thank you.
are
It's
very
enough.
welcome. We're having a very lovely sunny. So, of course it's like, add another 30 degrees where we live, and we choose to live in a place that gets abundance of sun and warmer temperatures at this time of the year. So same, we had a nice warm sunny day, and it's funny because like after my group fitness class that I went to this morning with my friend Linda, we were standing in the parking lot, and it was like so warm on our skin, and we were just like chatting, and I was like having that moment of like connection and just enjoyment of being in the sun with another person. It was just like so great. So, but that was after we got our butts handed to us in this like high intensity fitness class. And there were like I think there were like 50 people, 50 women in this class. Like it was incredible. It was such high energy, and it was just so much fun. And this is, we joined our local YMCA, and it happens to be a brand new facility built within the last year or two. So we're very lucky to have that facility in our area. But let me just tell you, the classes, the instructors, the quality of the instruction, it is phenomenal. And if you are looking for a place to go for your fitness in your community, that they have, sorry, we're taking a moment because Blue is currently eating the microphone. Blue, I know it feels good.
This is let me outside, woman.
I
or I
know.
am going to
I'm really,
terrorize.
she's going to terrorize me during this entire recording because she's dying to go outside. She's like, you just said how nice it was out there. Let me out.
Always
Anyway,
listening, aren't they?
I know, baby. So anyway, yeah, like look for a local YMCA. I grew up going to the Y playing tennis. Like I was a tennis player when I was a teenager and had to take lessons at the Y. And it was like, I remember feeling very dreary there. It wasn't like, just wasn't as fun of a place. I am having a whole new experience at my YMCA locally. It is so much fun. There are so many people. They've got this kids club that I can take Indigo to, and she gets to hang out with her friends and she loves the teachers. They're amazing. It is just such a fun place to go. And they've got tons of activities and group classes like fitness classes, yoga. I'm just blown away. So I'm going to make a plug for my local Y, but also look for one in your area because the price, you cannot beat the price point. And I hear that from so many people like, well, I don't have a gym. The YMCAs are all over the place. And it's just been such a great addition to our lives. So
Hmm.
just a little plug there.
It's worth the plug because as a group fitness instructor, the last 5 years have been really hard
For sure.
for group instructors. A lot of them couldn't teach throughout COVID.
Sure.
And not only couldn't they teach, but the classes were closed off or
Right.
attendance was so low that classes were cut. So to
Cancel.
see group fitness coming back, those of us instructors that know the value of that and to see
Mm.
people, they come into class that didn't really think it would be great. Like it's just, okay, I'm just going to take this class today because why not? It's pretty nerve wracking for people for some people to walk into a class that they're not familiar with, like what's going to happen to me. It says a lot about an instructor. That's their job to make you more comfortable, get you in there. And the next thing you know, you see people talking or from one to, looking at each other like, oh my gosh, this is tough, but we're hanging in there. And you see the magic of that. And hey, for some people, if the last time you took a group fitness class, you were wearing, tights and leg warmers and the leotard and you were jazzercising to the 1988 tapes in your living room, fabulous. Get the same outfit going if that's what motivates you because anything goes. I can tell you what, in group fitness classes, nobody cares anymore if you look silly. It is actually welcome.
I was
Get
gonna
in
say, and the
there.
leg warmers are making a comeback. I
I
mean,
love leg warmers. I've worn
we
them for
had a cold
years.
spell here, and let me just tell you, there were people that were sporting their leg warmers in the last week, and I was like, this is amazing. So
Mhm.
excited about it. I was like, yes, leg warmers back in
Yeah.
action.
We have an instructor at one of the gyms I teach in. I walked up on her and she looked like orange sherbet, but like it was the rainbow sherbet, like the way she was dressed.
Yeah,
So yeah, I was like, you look like a snack, but it was mostly because she had this orange lime strawberry
brilliant.
thing going on from head to toe.
Love
And
it.
it just, you own it. And
Yeah,
it's such as life,
fun.
right? Just find
Yeah,
something you love to do and get in there. So yeah, the why, any of those community gyms, awesome. So if you're not going to go sit in the sun and just breathe the stress away like I did, then hey, you've got a class calling your name.
absolutely. The community experiences there. It's connection. I mean, I was like feeling that energy with the people in that class. It was so much fun. We had
Yeah.
a great time this morning. So,
Yay.
yeah. So anyway, I was feeling motivated to share because again, like to your point, if you haven't been to a gym in, some time because of maybe getting out of the habit for group fitness, because of COVID in the past, or maybe the fear to return or not knowing where to go, it's a good place to start in your community and find out where your local community centers are. So
Yay.
there's a little plug.
Well, I love the plug. So, personal story is where we're going today. And I am really excited to, in some ways, introduce you to Kylie Buckner. And many of you may hear the name. You see us here, you've heard us before. But the thing about it is, Kylie has a story for why we are partnering and doing the lifestyle theme. And it goes way, way back before many of you have probably heard her story before. So yeah,
Yeah.
here's Kylie letting us have it today.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I'm very comfortable. I really love getting to know people's backgrounds. Like I love hearing people's stories. I love hearing people's life journeys, how they twist and turn. And, I also love to share, experiences that have really mattered for me. And I think that's how we as humans connect, where we become relatable to each other, right? The more you know and the more points of connection can lend to a deeper and richer relationship or experience with one another. And, also, the universe really can surprise us in terms of how we're connected, how deeply we're connected, and we may not even know it. So I love the idea of being able to, talk about where we started, where did I come from? Like how did this whole thing happen, and why am I here now? And that's what this is about for sure. I mentioned on last week's episode, I'm a nurse. It's my professional, career path was a nurse. And it's funny because like, I swear I was born to be a nurse when I was a little girl, even as young as my daughter's age now. My favorite toy to play with was my Cabbage Patch preemie doll. And I had the little doctor's kit, and I loved to like assess her. And like, I swear I was meant to be a NICU nurse, really. I was meant to be taking care of babies. And like, I loved this baby doll. And funny enough, my mom just revisited this doll and brought her to Indigo. And like, now my daughter is playing with my baby Cabbage Patch doll, my little preemie. And it's just so much fun. It's like that full circle, right? Where the world just sort of keeps coming back to you. But it's reminded me of my beginnings and the fact that, I grew up in an area that was full of like farmland, but we didn't have necessarily a specific dietary strategy. It was sort of like the standard American diet, but like my mom was definitely stressed very much like the importance of like no sugar. She was always looking for the added sugars and like hidden sugars. And she really liked feeding us whole foods and fresh foods. And so we did eat a lot of that. So I was very lucky to actually know that my mom was being discerning in the types of things she was feeding us. And that being said, I still was eating, meats and cheeses and dairy and all of those things that were part of the 80s diet, right? But my mom she liked to make meals for us. So, my exposure to nutrition, sorry, oopsie daisies,
Whether we leave that in or cut that out, I just threw my microphone across the room. Okay.
Microphone's flying.
There you go.
That's okay. So yeah, I didn't have like a dietary strategy necessarily growing up. And when I, eventually moved into adulthood and went to school for nursing, I was able to take some nutrition classes, and we took physiology classes, and we were learning how the body works and nutrients that are in food. And that was very interesting to me. I really enjoyed those topics. And as a nurse, I felt very compelled to be a role model. And so I felt like I ate healthy. I was really trying my best to eat a lot of fresh foods. And there was kind of like, I remember sometimes in the nurses' lounge, there would be like foods that people would bring in that were like, donuts or treats or cookies or things like that. And sometimes I feel like I would get teased about like, oh, Kylie, you're eating another salad again. Or, I've cared about what I've eaten for most of my adult life. And then something happened in 2011 where the world kind of was giving me a whole new like opportunity to look at something different. And I was going through a really big change in my life. I was going through a divorce. I was making this big shift in my life. My life as I knew it was sort of changing in a very big way. And I have some close friends that I was learning a lot from at that point. And I was spending a lot of time with them. They were showing me how they were modifying their diet. They were becoming vegan. They were adopting a plant-based diet. They had read this book called The China Study, and they, handed it over, and they're like, hey, check out this book. And I think, you might be interested in it. And I did. I read the book, and I remember really consuming the book. I mean, talk about consumption, right? I was very compelled by what I was reading in the China Study. The China Study was written by a father-son physician duo, both Dr. Campbell. T. Colin Campbell is the father of the two. And they had performed this research study on over 10,000 people in China over a period of 20 years. And what they were learning about this population of people was that as the dietary strategy was changing in this part of Asia that they were studying, the health conditions of the people were changing. So they were looking at, back in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, people in the areas they were studying didn't have access to large amounts of animal protein. They didn't have access to meats and cheese and dairy products and things like that. They were eating off the land. They were eating the things that they were harvesting. Rice was a primary source of nutrition. Vegetables, minimal, lots of carbohydrate-rich foods, but they were in the form of plants, right? Directly from the source, from nature. And then all of a sudden, as the world started to grow and populations like this started to have access to more fast food options, or just the introduction of more meat and dairy into their diet as part of just revolution, like things changing, all of a sudden they started seeing diabetes, increases of cases of diabetes, heart disease, all these metabolic conditions, cancer started coming up on the rise. And so I was reading, and that's like the summary, the bigger picture of the China study. But the main takeaways were that these conditions, these chronic health conditions, did not exist in a population. And then all of a sudden, over the course of 20 years, they started to see this addition of heart disease and cancers and metabolic disorder. And that to me was fascinating. Like the data on that and the long-term study, the fact that they were looking at these populations over a long course of time. As a nurse, as somebody who was very much a researcher myself, like I understood research and I was interested in science and our bodies, how our bodies work. That was so compelling for me.
This was new information, right? This was new to you after all of the school and work and the reality that you had been in. Mm-hmm. This was new to you.
Yes. I had already finished my master's degree in nursing. So I had done, deep dives in research in education and things like that, but and in nursing in particular, nursing education. And so I was already very well educated in the healthcare world. And yet all of a sudden, this whole concept of animal protein, in particular, animal protein being a driver of disease, was that this was a problem, right? That's what this book was pointing out, that, populations that consumed more plant-rich foods reduced their intake of animal protein, or maybe the inverse of that. When they started to increase the consumption of animal protein and dairy products and milk and things like that, their health conditions changed and the condition of their health got worse. And that was just so profound to me. And I remember thinking, like, how are we not all given this book in our respective field? Like when I entered nursing school, why wasn't I given this book? When doctors are going into medical training, like, why aren't they being given these books? Because the very first chapter is on heart disease, and the second chapter is on cancer, and then the third chapter is on. And as I was going through each of these individual sections, learning the depth of the research that they had conducted, I was like, by the time I got through the second section, I was like, okay, I get it. I see. And as a healthcare professional, I really cared about prevention of disease. Like I want to avoid those things. I don't want to live a life with heart disease. And, I would love to be able to prevent those things. And so I started changing my diet. Like I stopped buying certain foods. Shopping for things. I started shopping differently, right? Like, so one week I would leave out, I was like, well, I haven't had XYZ. I haven't had hot dogs in a couple of months anyway, so I'm just not going to eat them anymore. I'm just not going to buy them. Oh, I haven't had chicken in a while, and I'm okay with that, so I'm just not going to eat that. And I just started filling my kitchen, and again, like I was going through a profound time of my life of change anyway, so it just seemed to like really fill in some gaps for me of terms of like, what can I do for me that's going to be healthy and good? What decisions can I make today that's going to actually help fuel me when I'm in this stressful state in other parts of, for other reasons of my life right now. And so that was really interesting, because what I started to notice was the things that were happening inside of my body prior to this sort of like aha moment of like, oh, I'm just going to start adding these more plant foods in and take out the dairy and take out the meat. After about 3 months, I was looking at a primarily plant-based diet. So, there were maybe a few little things that I was like, okay, well, I'll eventually get them out. But after 3 months, I was definitely 90% away there. The China study recommendations is saying like 90% of your diet. People who eat a dietary strategy that is 90% or I'd say like, how do they say it? Like 90% is from plants and that 10% is from animal proteins. That's going to give you your best outcomes. That's kind of the takeaway message from that book. So I was kind of like, okay, I can get there. And it was pretty easy to do that. And I started noticing things were happening in my body. I had always felt these like inflammatory things happening. I could never quite explain them. Like I had rosacea in my cheeks, and I would have, really weird breakouts and acne. This is in my 20s and early 30s. So I was kind of like, I was like, why am I still having this acne in my adult years? I remember I had really bad bloating and digestive issues, and I just felt inflamed. I had eczema on my arms. Like there were things that were like non-specific, but I just remember feeling like I feel inflamed and maybe this is something that can help me, right? So within a few months of definitely dairy being out of my diet, I remember like my eczema was gone on my arms, and like I didn't have those bumps, and they weren't itchy, and like all that stress of like my arms feeling uncomfortable or red looking, they looked, they were clear. They were totally clear. And my rosacea went away and my skin started to clear up. And there were all these things that were happening. I was like, oh my gosh, wow, this is really amazing. And so I felt like really like things were just lining up for me in terms of how I was choosing to live my life at that point. And then, I moved to California, and I went as a travel nurse, which was super exciting and just like a lot of fun, and took a travel nursing assignment. And I met Cyrus there, and he and I really hit it off, but he had just finished studying this nutritional biochemistry program, and he finished his PhD in nutritional biochemistry. So he's got like this nutritional background.
Wait, what's your husband's name? Who's this guy?
This guy, his name's Cyrus Campana. Just
Some
my
people know
hubby.
him. Some
People
people know him.
He's just a guy.
Fine.
And he's my hubby. And we met, and I was like, tell me more. Like I read this book last year. It sounds very similar to what you're talking about. And he had studied insulin resistance. And I remember like the night we met, he said to me, I'm going to teach the world the truth about diabetes. And he was explaining what insulin resistance was and how it impacted his type 1 diabetes and how he reversed it using a plant-based strategy. And I was like, I believe you. I believe you're going to do that. And I want you to. And I think that's so exciting and amazing and powerful. And like, can you do, like, how do you teach people that? Because I want in on that, like that is so interesting. And again, as a nurse and having this background, it just felt really exciting. So, he started down a journey of working with people and teaching people. And I've learned so much from him over the years. And throughout, the years, we've gained such great resources in the world of nutrition and lifestyle medicine, right? There's so many more people talking about it. I feel like there's this almost like 2011, 2012, when I talk to people about like when they started their journey, that time frame comes up for a lot of people. It's the same time that the documentary Forks Over Knives came out. And that was basically based on the China study, information from the China study. That documentary was really groundbreaking. It was one of the highest grossing or highest viewed documentaries ever on Netflix. I mean, it was a very profound. People really heard that message, and it was a wonderful, wonderful documentary. So there's almost this like pre-2012, post-2012 explosion of focus on plant-based nutrition for health and wellness.
I was going to say what the health followed, but actually that would have been a few
that was
years
like
later.
2015 or 2016.
Because that really got me. I remember I remember basically running out of the front door and needing to take a walk because I had steam coming out of my ears after watching What the Health. And I was already in the field, sort of. I think I was I think I had probably just gotten my RD. But yes, this is probably a lot of people's experiences, right? In this kind of time frame when documentaries were coming out, along with the China study, which was your catapult into your own body. Really.
Yes, exactly. Well, exactly. And like, I mean, I started feeling great from a plant-based diet right away. I mean, I immediately felt the benefits of it. I felt more energy. I felt more energized. I remember feeling just good about taking new steps forward for my life. And that was great. And then, as time went on, and Cyrus was in the process of writing a book and building, coaching strategies, and I started working as a coach, that started changing my mind even more, because all of a sudden people were coming, and I was having the opportunity to coach other people and teach them these strategies. And that was so exciting, because I had a chance to showcase how we live our lives, right? How, like, this is the lifestyle. The things that we recommend, it's like, not just like do what I say, do what I do, right? Here's a formula that can work for you. And what I saw as a coach is that people were really ready for suggestions and tools, and people would come to us for that type of support and help in their health journey. And that was really exciting. And along the way, I also got certified as a yoga instructor, and I was teaching yoga for a while. Actually, Cyrus and I made a move to Costa Rica for a few years. We lived there, which was just a very exciting opportunity to like live abroad, but also like live in a place where, life has a little more simplicity. And we were working on some other projects at the time and really diving into the goal of helping other people and making a difference for people and sharing our lifestyle there in that way. And that was really exciting.
And fruit falling from the trees doesn't hurt
I know,
either,
our
right?
mango hunts. Yeah, exactly. We would go on mango runs, like searching the local trees and like, yeah, I mean, the produce delivery guy that would come and like drop off, cases of pineapples and papayas to our house. That definitely made it very easy. So that was really such a spectacular window of time that, and throughout that time frame when we were in Costa Rica, that's where my like next phase of like, all of a sudden this whole dietary strategy and this lifestyle that we've been living kind of like, I don't even know what the right description is, but basically Cyrus and I began a fertility journey. We decided we were ready to become parents, and like so many people we were in our late 30s, it's like the fertility journey. Like, what is this going to look like for us? And, I'd always felt pretty relatively healthy when it came to my reproductive health. I didn't have anything to say, like, oh, well, it's going to be a challenge for you. But we tried for a while. We were trying to conceive, and eventually it became obvious it wasn't happening on our own. So we decided to go get some help and saw a fertility doctor who basically let me know that I had cysts on my ovaries. And not just any old cysts, they were hemorrhagic cysts, and they're called endometriomas. And I was like, what are you talking? Like, what is happening here? And endometriomas are a symptom of endometriosis. They're actually an indication of stage 4 endometriosis, as I came to learn. So all of a sudden, I'm deep diving my life into what the heck is endometriosis and why am I 40 years old, just learning about this condition that clearly is advanced in disease process. And that just took off a whole new branch of my newfound research. And what I came to find out is that I had been living with endometriosis for many, many, many years. My symptoms had gone under or misdiagnosed by unfortunately, many different doctors. I had always had a history of GI disruption and discomfort and had seen gastroenterologists about it. With no real, basically I've been diagnosed with IBS, misdiagnosed. I'd had a history of pain and discomfort in my legs and hips and had been told, cat interruption, had been told that it was, there was no real explanation. Like I'd told it anxiety, depression, all these things, which weren't untrue. I definitely have also dealt with my fair share of anxiety and depression and things like that. But, this idea that women, especially when it comes to chronic health conditions for women, often get miss or underdiagnosed and are often gaslit about their symptoms. Mm-hmm. And so I sought out some specialists in the endometriosis world, and I found a specialist who performs surgery that is basically like, the way you can describe it, it's sort of like a seek and find. It's a, what's the word? It's escaping me. What do they call it? Starts with an L. We can cut this part out.
A type of surgery?
Yeah. It's excision surgery, but it's like abdominal.
Laparoscopic or something?
Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So basically, the type of surgery that they perform is called an excision surgery, but it's laparoscopically completed, and it's a elective procedure for women who are living with endometriosis. The symptoms of endometriosis are there for most women, and if you know 10 women in your life, one of them has endometriosis, by the way. 1 in 10 women are living with endometriosis. It's unclassified in terms of being an inflammatory versus autoimmune condition, still undetermined, not very well. Unfortunately, the standard of care in the OBGYN practice tends to be medication, and specifically medications that are also used to treat cancer. But unfortunately, oftentimes that just causes a lot of infertility, which is usually when women are learning about their endometriosis, is when they're on a fertility journey, because it's one of the number one causes of infertility, or at least difficulty in conceiving. So, and this is something that women live with. And one of the main symptoms that comes up for women is significant, even mild menstrual pain, but mild to severe menstrual pain and uncomfortable, unmanageable menstrual symptoms. It's the, oh, it's just part of the cycle, dear, type of mentality. Like, oh, you have a period, it's going to be painful. Well, I can tell you, fast forward a little bit past my surgery, which I will get to that, I no longer have painful periods. And I did for 25 plus years of my life. So to go from a woman who had painful periods, who was told that is just normal, it's just how periods are, to now understanding that was wrong. Birth control pills are not the answer to painful periods. Again, something I was led to believe. Painful periods are just part of life. Not necessarily true. And, Also, if you do have painful periods, it's worth looking into the idea that maybe there is something more going on. So that's our like PSA for the day, right? Our women's health PSA. So as it turned out, I ended up finding a surgeon I really loved. He went through my medical history. I went for MRIs. He reviewed them. We scheduled surgery. And as it turned out, my surgery was scheduled for the week of March 25th of 2020, which in New York City, which, as we know, was just at the time that basically New York City went into lockdown. I was a woman trying to conceive a child who had a solution lined up and then got basically locked down from. And as you can imagine, it really did wonders for my mental health over the next few months. Eventually, the lockdowns were lifted and elective surgeries were, we were able to get back to that. But, the mental health journey that I went through on that as well, I definitely was dealing with high degree of anxiety, depression. The infertility journey is one that is incredibly stressful, incredibly, I don't know if there's a word to describe the journey. It's painful and it's hard. And, we were at a time where we were in lockdown with each other and we were in different places with it. Men and women have different experiences of infertility. And especially knowing that my body was compromised, right? Like that felt really very isolating for me. We were already feeling isolated during a lockdown situation in a country where we were visitors. Like it was really a tough time. So eventually we made some new choices. We ended up relocating back to the US so that I could have my elective surgery. And I had that at the end of October in 2020. Had my first pain-free cycle in November of 2020. And then in December of 2020, I conceived our daughter naturally without the assistance of any fertility support. And I have to tell you, the amazing part of this was like my fertility journey was like ended with a conception, which was amazing. I feel so fortunate of that. But I have to go back to my surgeon because the surgeon that I saw is not a lifestyle medicine physician. He's a surgeon who understands that inflammation is a big part of the condition that he treats. And he, is working with women who are suffering with a high degree of inflammation when you're living with endometriosis. It is recommended to eat an anti-inflammatory diet to help promote your health and to decrease the symptoms of endometriosis, but it doesn't cure this condition. And so he knew what our lifestyle was. Like he explained to him, we were following plant-based diet. We have this anti-inflammatory lifestyle. So when he performed my surgery, one of the most interesting takeaways was that he explained that, he's done thousands of these surgeries over the years. He's been in practice for a very long time. And he said, I've never seen a disease pathway like yours. He said, I can see very old disease here. Like you have adhesions and scar tissue that date back 20 years. So you've been living with this for a very long time. He said, but there's no growth. It's like it stopped growing 10 years ago. And at the time, that's about the amount of time I've been plant-based. And he said, I have no doubt in my mind that your lifestyle has significantly impacted your disease progression. He said, the cysts are new, these endometriomas are new, but other than that, there's no other scar tissue. There's no other disease. Like there were very obvious places where my disease was, where these adhesions were living. But he said, there's no new progression. And he's like, I 100% believe that that's because of your lifestyle and like the way that you live your lifestyle. I mean, for a he's a surgeon. First of all, he didn't have to make that connection, but he did, because of how much endometriosis he's seen in his career, in his experience. And I just found that to be so validating for what I was trying to accomplish in my life, that I knew something was inflamed in me. I didn't really know what it was until the endometriosis really was like the sort of front and center for me. And then to be able to go on to conceive and have a healthy pregnancy and follow this dietary strategy throughout my pregnancy, it was just like such a strong point of validation for me that I was on the right path, So, like I said, I've worked in women, last week we talked about the fact that I've been in women's health from many different angles, and I'd worked with women in the clinics and in health clinics, and to become a patient of a women's health condition that I was unaware of was also a whole other book to unpack, right? Or like box to unpack, because it's something that's now getting some attention, and like I said, if you've got 10 female friends, one of them has endometriosis. So like, this is something we need to talk about. We need to talk about our teenagers, about painful periods, talk to our young women about, what it means to have a painful period, and that it's not normal and it's okay to get help for that, because there's reasons why your body's talking to you if you're having pain. There's reasons why your body's talking to you, and it needs not be dismissed anymore, right? That's like old thinking. We're in 2025 now. We need not live in pain. This is why I've become a really passionate advocate for women, and for lifestyle interventions, that they do matter, right? Anti-inflammatory diets are powerful. They're significant. They matter. And now as women, Lauren, you and I, have experienced the benefits of our anti-inflammatory diet, who are using our diet for preventative health, right? Our dietary strategy is like, I don't want heart disease. Like we're going to bring it right back to heart health. Like, yes, I'm talking about heart health is women's health, right? It matters what we eat, what we consume, what we put in our bodies matter, because when we look at it from even just the baseline of the anti-inflammatory strategy, it's so powerful. And so, now as I hear, I've spent a lot of time working with people living with diabetes, heart disease, those types of conditions. I have worked with women who've had conditions like PCOS, gestational diabetes, not so much with other people with endometriosis, but I have helped some women at least get checked out for endo. I was like, I've pointed it out to a few of my clients, like, hey, consider you talking with a doctor about getting diagnosed, finding out more about endometriosis, because sometimes the symptoms are, again, nondescript. They're subtle. They're subtle symptoms, things that are like, well, I get bloated, or, things like that, which, well, is it food related? Because sometimes bloating is food related, but sometimes it's not. And, yeah, my interest moving forward is really in these inflammatory conditions, the metabolic processes, metabolic health, using my own experience to really help people connect dots. And, we all have our own journey, our own story, our own experience. And what are the things that work? I love talking with my girlfriend, having talks with friends about like, what's working for you right now? Like, what are you doing? For me, yoga, meditation, those types of things have been really great for stress management, stress relief. But also, like, what are the things that led you to question the care that you've received, or question your health? Who are those people in your life? Who are the people that are helping to support you? And if you don't have those people, we want to be those people for you. Like, we want to share, we want to help be a resource, be a guide, maybe inspire somewhere along the way. And that's kind of why I'm here in 2025.
I'm kind of speechless. I'm leaning into the microphone now, finally, as I had thrown my microwave. What am I? Microphone, thrown my microphone across the floor, because Kylie had a few absolute mic drop moments. I hope some women in particular listening were picking up on this, that we need not live in pain. That was major, Kylie, how you said that, because it takes personal experience to kind of decide brakes. I'm putting the brakes on my healthcare right now, and I'm going to start asking questions about my reproductive health. Are we allowed? I think that's the thing with women. Am I allowed to ask questions about my reproductive health because I'm, in my tall 30s, and conceiving should just be hard anyways? Hold on. If you're living healthy, and you have been for quite some time, and you're highly aware that you are following some kind of an anti-inflammatory nutrition pattern for yourself, it's time to ask some of these questions. And you can absolutely be uncomfortable with your healthcare or feel that it's inadequate, and take action on that. I like to remind people that you are the primary caregiver in your healthcare. You're the primary, not your doctor, not your damn insurance company. What comes in the mail that tells you what to do, this and that and the other thing to get checked up on. Breaks. Again, you get to stop, you get to think, and you get to make the decision. And for Kylie, you had news that you didn't expect, but the fact that you have a timestamp, a cellular timestamp,
Yes,
on your uterus,
right,
within
in my
uterus,
pelvic floor. Yes, throughout my
is
pelvic floor.
incredible. Yeah,
Yes,
that's incredible.
isn't that wild? You're right. A cellular timestamp. Oh my gosh, that is like, it's so true. And like, it is so, the level of advocacy that I had to make for myself. I went into deep dive mode. Like I said, Beating Endo is a book I read by an endometriosis specialist named Dr. Iris Orbuck, and she and her husband have a clinic in Santa Monica. They are leading experts in the endometriosis world. If you're somebody or know somebody living with endometriosis, that book was like, I read that book thinking, I would turn a page and I would just like start bawling my eyes out because I felt like somebody was writing the story of my life. And she was describing the symptomology and the treatment in medical care and that sort of thing. I mean, it was just like the whole thing. And I had to really like digest all of that before I was able to take action. It was really a big process. I went and called for all my medical records from all the different places that I'd been and, reviewed everything on the table. I remember sitting, it was in Costa Rica at the time. I was just sitting at the table in my patio, just like crying, just like so angry at like this for myself. Like I was so angry that like this had been missed and I had missed, like I felt, of course, moments of like, how did I miss this? Right. Because of course I felt like you feel like you're your own expert, in your own body. How did I miss this? And yet, but to be honest, I had to really just take my health by my hands and find the specialists that were going to be able to help me. And, I consulted with 3 different physician teams before I settled in on the doctor that I went with, who I really connected with and felt like was going to be the best fit for me. And that's another thing, get second and third opinions. All 3 of the doctors that I talked to believed that I had stage 4 endometriosis based on my health history, by my MRI results, but they had some differences in like where they thought it was going to be inside of my pelvic floor or throughout my abdominal cavity. And my surgeon ended up being kind of right on the one that I went with. I think I felt like he spoke to me in the way that I felt like he really had a sense of where things were going to be. And he was right, and even though they go into the surgery almost like I said before, like the seek and find sort of like, let's search for your adhesions or your endometriosis tissue or the scar tissue, that's their job and that's what they do really well. So, finding people that are going to be able to also believe you and advocate for you to get the best care possible. And that's what I did. And that's what we have to do. I mean, multiple opinions, sometimes we have to get them.
Well, and
find the person that you're going to connect with, really.
In addition to that, little Indigo popped out screaming for a smoothie, as far as I can tell. Just, she gravitates towards things that are good for her. Oh my gosh.
She does. Well, that's all she's known, I mean, my body and during pregnancy, I followed a plant-based strategy during pregnancy and I was eating my heart out of fruits and vegetables and potatoes and all sorts of yummy things. And that's what she craves. She loves that. She loves the food that we prepare. And so now as raising a plant-based person, we're at a stage that we still are making decisions for her. But she gets a lot of autonomy in her choices. Again, with kids, I'm certainly not a parenting expert. I am a parent in training every day. I always say that. I'm a PIT. Every single day, she's parenting me. She's teaching me. But what I've learned so far is that giving her as many choices as small choices, but choosing her choices. Like she works on choosing her choice every day. So, is she having a smoothie or, an avocado toast? Like, what are the choices here? And she loves it. She loves making her own choices in the food she's going to eat. She loves shopping with me at the grocery store. Which are we having green grapes or purple grapes this week? What foods are we bringing into the house? And she's learning. She'll bring something over to me that looks yummy to her. And she'll say, Mommy, is this vegan? And I'll look at the ingredients with her. I'll say, let's look at the ingredients together. And that's how we choose what comes into our house. And if the ingredients aren't in alignment with the things that we want to put in our bodies, it doesn't come home with us. And, she's already learning. Like she'll show me the nutrition label and then she'll go, oh. She makes this cute little like, aw, but okay, I understand you're disappointed. I get it. I know it's hard at first, but then we talk about what benefits you're getting from the food. Well, this one has fiber and here's what, it's funny because only our kid would love hearing about fiber and she does. She's indulging us at this point. I believe there is a timestamp on this, someday there's going to be a day where she's like, all right, I'm done with y'all and you're crazy, whatever. But, hopefully we'll have laid a foundation that she is happy about and that she'll want to continue in some way and that she'll be a curious eater and curious about what she's putting in her body. That's how, that's the type of parenting that I'm subscribing to right now, is building a curious mind. And I think we do that through our food choices, even with the clients I've coached. That's one of the goals in coaching for me, is a tool. It's a tool. Does my client have a curious mind about what they're putting in their body at the end of our coaching time, whatever that time frame is? Because if the answer is yes, then I feel like I've really done my job as a coach. And that's where my coaching and my parenting are apparently overlapping, as I'm acknowledging right now.
Well, the other thing it does too is that if your job is to be a health coach or a dietitian or a nurse and someone is coming to you for information and wanting to learn from you, your step one is to create a healing environment on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what we do is what's your kitchen look like? Are you set up to be able to get out of the house to go for a walk or to exercise? What's your environment look like for stress and sleep? So you set up that external environment so that your internal environment, as in your digestive system, your heart, your endocrine system, can do the healing. If you haven't set yourself up to heal, you could always still use the word succeed in health, I suppose, here. But the way I look at it is the nutrition is going to help you heal. That's all that we're trying to do. That cellular timestamp, right? It translates. It translates to heart health. It translates to endocrine health. It translates to insulin sensitivity. And it sure as heck is translating to a healthy reproductive system.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's so important to set the stage versus just, I'm going to dive in and start doing all these things and change everything tomorrow. And this is how it's going to happen. There's stages to this. How many years went into this, Kylie? Because like you said, you knew when you had made the nutrition changes, but at what point, how much time had gone by before you actually found out you were pregnant?
After my surgery?
Yeah,
Oh, 2 months.
that
I
was
got pregnant.
2 months. But when you
Oh,
started to change your diet
oh,
with your
oh, oh.
friends from the China study.
Oh, that was 2011. And then
Okay.
I conceived in 2020.
Look at that. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
making changes from the healthcare that you knew
Right.
that was, or the healthcare that is,
Yeah.
to taking ownership for yourself. This
Yeah.
is how it works. It's a huge change. It's a huge shift. And
Yeah.
no one's expected to do this overnight because it really is quite different in some respects for what people have learned.
For sure. And, the one of the biggest, I think, takeaways when I think back over like feeling this like inflammation inside of my body, I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It was
Mhm.
like something's not right. My digestion is weird. I used to have this terrible bloating where like I would even look like I was pregnant, and people would ask me, and there were times where that question was really hard to have to say. Like I was like wanting to become pregnant, and people would ask if I was pregnant, and I wasn't, and that was really sad for me. But yet, like I looked like I could be pregnant because of the bloating I was experiencing. And if like when I think about like that time of my life where I just didn't have any answers, but like people were noticing things about me. Same thing with like the eczema on my arms. I was very self-conscious of that. I was very uncomfortable in it because it was itchy and it would flake and scratch, and the winter dry skin would like, oh my God, it would like bleed. Like I would get like bleeding on my
Mhm.
arms. Like it was
Mhm.
embarrassing. And like I hated that. Like I didn't like that. And same thing with like the rosacea. My cheeks were always so pink and red. And, you know,
Hmm.
again, some of that is like that image of ourselves, but I didn't have the same maybe confidence for myself to be okay with those things, but I didn't understand why. It was like something weird is happening. I don't know what it is. And then it would be like, well, take this medication, this cream, or use this cream for your acne. Use this, I was getting like medicated acne treatments from the
Mhm.
dermatologist. And like, I didn't feel comfortable. Same thing with like, I was prescribed birth control pill for the painful periods. And I didn't really want to be taking pharmaceuticals as the answer. There was something inside of me that felt very much in conflict with that too. Like, I felt like I feel like there's something else. And that's what, again, reading the China study, for me, that book was just a game changer. It just was like, I felt like it was like this answer of something that I needed. Same thing when I read Beating Endo. It was like this game changer for me. Sometimes you just come across a resource, something, and maybe you have to seek it out a little bit. But when you find something that really resonates, that really explains something that's happening, that you're like, I knew it. I knew something wasn't right here. And now I have this answer. And okay, I can do something with this, right? It's something that, and yeah, you may go through a phase. Like I remember having the angry phase of like, how has nobody ever told me this? And like, blah, like this is ridiculous. And like, you get through that phase, but then you're like, okay, now I can take charge. I can be the decision maker here. And that's where sometimes you need a little help with that. Sometimes you need a coach. Sometimes you need a therapist. Sometimes you need a friend. Sometimes you need even a doctor. There's lots of doctors out there who are practicing lifestyle medicine, right? So finding the right person at the right time, the right tool at the right time, the right resource at the right time, and trying to let the rest of the stuff kind of fall to the wayside until you have more security in yourself and you can like move forward with your choices, right? And, the China study for me was one of the other things I really liked about it was forgiving. It was a 90% rule, right? So like, oh, could I do a 90% strategy? Sure, I could totally do that. That's very easy to me, actually. It meant leaving off cheese off of my salads. It meant, I still get all the other salad stuff. I just didn't put the cheese on it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I can put other things, like, fine. It meant maybe ordering vegetable sushi at the sushi bar, or, if I was going out to a sushi restaurant with some friends, ordering the veggie options, the vegetable rolls instead of the ones with fish in them. It meant, or maybe having one bite of the fish roll and something like that. Like 10% felt very easy to move towards, right? It was, that felt like something I could accomplish pretty easily. And I did. Within 3 months, I was able to accomplish that very easily. And then after I got to that, but once I got to that 90%, then I was sort of like, well, I may as well just do the other 10%. Okay, I'm just vegan now. So it was just like, that just felt very easy once I got, but my point is that if you're somebody listening here and you're, maybe you're an omnivore, maybe you're somebody who's consuming a diet that's sort of an omnivore diet, and you're like, well, you know what? Let me learn about these health benefits. Oh, okay. Oh, 90%. Okay, I could do 90%. You're going to get incredible benefits for your health, for your longevity, for your heart health, from a prevention standpoint with 90%. And that's what that book opened my eyes to. And I was excited by that.
Mm-hmm. What was the time frame too? It was, gosh, am I saying it was 20, no, how many was 65 counties in China?
Yeah.
Also. Oh my God.
So it was a large area they added, I think it also went on. So I mean, I don't remember all the specific details, but basically they were looking at, expanded over 20 years. So that was important. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it looked at lifestyle choices, diet, physical movement, and it actually correlates very well with like the Blue Zones diet. There were Blue Zones book, that one has been made popular in the most recent years. And that's another incredible resource, another incredible book, very inspiring when you look at looking at populations of people who are following some of these same daily habits, right? When it comes to their dietary strategy, their movement, having community, having love and community around them. It's similar. It almost like parallels the research from the Blue Zones in some ways.
Yeah, it incorporates that there's more happening there. There's more happening to health than just, the subject of a study is usually very, very, very specific. And Blue Zones has a great way of buffering so many of those studies, actually, if they're just focusing on what happens in this particular component of nutrition in a tight parameters, then Blue Zones kind of comes in and says, oh, by the way, did you also notice that purpose is important?
Yeah.
And that community is important, and having a bit of faith of something is also important. So I feel like you've kind of collectively touched on a lot of those things too. You probably had to have a lot, working in yoga and meditation, you had to have a lot of faith and hope within yourself that the surgery is necessary, but let's just hope that the outcome is what we're hoping at the same time.
Yes. And for that, I leaned into some of my hope holders, because there were times where I was experiencing a lot of despair about becoming a mom and wanting that for my life. And I was experiencing some significant depression at a time where the world was hurting. We were in the depths of COVID. Anxiety and depression were on the rise. And so there were so many factors. And I leaned into my hope holders. One of my very close friends who introduced me to the China study also reminded me that she was going to hold hope for me. Well, when I couldn't, because I was losing it. I was losing hope. And she said that word, she was going to hold hope for me. And I was like, okay. And so incidentally, Indigo's middle name is Hope.
Aww.
Because I had a lot of it. I've been it, hope is for people who are not experiencing depression. People who are experiencing depression are often lacking hope. And in the chronic health world, unfortunately, there's a lot of ties to depression as well. And it gets very underdiagnosed, very misdiagnosed. And one of my key roles as a coach in this healthcare coaching world is that I too am a hope holder. And I learned how to become one, and as a coach, and pass that forward and pay that forward, because it was so powerful to me to hear those words from somebody who cared about me and loved me. And yeah, I managed to crawl my way, fight my way out of my depression, and with lots of different tools. And coming out on the other side of that, like I started to regain hope, and taking steps towards surgery was definitely something that gave me more hope, right? To your point, like I had to relocate. We had to relocate during a pandemic. We moved from Costa Rica back to the US, to a place where I never thought I was going to live again, to, a town where I kind of was like, I had left many years prior.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that was like a whole other part of this, that was like the mental and emotional toll that it took on me. And that's, again, chronic illness can do that. Chronic illness will take its toll and will affect your mindset. And that's another reason why having a coach, having somebody that cares about you, who will hold that space, can be so valuable. Just being reminded that like you matter, you're important, and that if you don't have hope at this moment, I will. I do. I've got hope for you because I've seen it. I know what you're capable of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've managed to find hope again, and I knew that my child's middle name was going to be Hope from at that moment. Like I was like, okay, I don't know when this person's coming to me, but when they do, we're gonna, have some special meaning to your middle name. So anyway, yeah.
Oh my goodness, Kylie. Woo-hoo-hoo!
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you're getting us good today.
thanks. I mean, it's a really, and in the face of the mental health, I mean, I'm not a stranger to that journey. I've lived with anxiety most of my life. I'd say even as a child, I was suffering with anxiety, and it was very undiagnosed or misdirected, misguided. I mean, children dealing with anxiety are, unfortunately, like there's kids learn how to cope real quick, like, and perform really quickly. Kids with anxiety learn how to perform. And so that's something that, like, I know that's coming up for a lot of women in their 40s right now, are starting to become into an awareness of the anxiety that we've been facing collectively as a, as a whole, as women as a whole right now. And I see that a lot in my social media feeds and things that we're becoming aware of, right? And I'm glad that it is becoming something that we're talking about, because I'm not afraid to talk about it. I'm not afraid to talk about mental health and depression and anxiety, because something that feels very familiar to me. And I've worked very hard with a therapist over the last 12 years. I still, like, I'm in therapy because I love being in therapy. It's helped me to grow and become the person that I am now. If you don't love therapy, it's okay, because it's hard. It's hard work, but it's so worth it, because it's really helped me to grow and expand and like be the person I am now today at 45 years old, at this point in my life. And I value that time I spend. It's part of my self-care. It's part of my me time. So that's another, we're going to get into a lot of, so you and I are not going to shy away from the mindset and mental health. And we've got some people that we can bring in to talk about some of these things too, that are going to help to expand the conversation and make it hopefully very approachable.
What gets me is that I think you tapped into this in the beginning, is that personal story is so important.
Mm-hmm.
It's valid. It's validating. It's how people hear something and go, okay, I can be okay with this.
Mm-hmm.
I can get internal about this. I can be real with myself about this. I can acknowledge these feelings. It's also probably a big one for both men and women, is to acknowledge these feelings that I'm catching on. It runs so deep. And something that people may be able to observe in themselves is, do you think you could feel better? Because you don't have to settle with not feeling great. That isn't actually the norm. It's not supposed to be a settling in kind of a feeling, as I'm just okay feeling mediocre. I'm just okay not being happy, is to try to break a pattern. There's so much of that incorporated in the skills that people build and the skills that people build and the habits that they change when they start to get internal about what their lifestyle is like, and then what they need. Because once you get over some of these humps of, I'm starting to feel better because I'm getting answers, I'm starting to understand my body a little bit more, it doesn't stop there. Not exactly anyways. There are other things you end up enhancing because you've now got more energy to do things.
Yeah.
You're uplifted. You get up in the morning and things are just different. Do you ever think about where you would be if you hadn't made some of those choices right now?
Yeah.
If your friends hadn't thrown the China study in front of you?
I mean, it reminds me again just how my mom once gave me this keychain that says something like, you're exactly where you are supposed to be. And when I look back over the last like 15 years, even more probably, I mean, even more than that, because at every phase of my life on my journey and this experience, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I remember I loved being a NICU nurse. I loved it. It was a phase that it was part of my life that was really special and really important as I was like a new nurse coming into that part of my career. And it also opened the door to new things, right? It opened the door to me being able to navigate the world and move out and travel, be a travel nurse. And like, you know, and then I was exactly where I needed to be in San Francisco. And like when I met Cyrus and like exactly where I needed to be when my friends handed me that book, like it was, and I was paying attention, you know, and I think that's where maybe what was starting to happen at that point in my life was I was starting to learn more about presence. And I was starting to really dive into yoga practice at that point and really connecting with the idea of being present so that you can pay attention when things are coming your way and paying attention to the fact that none of this is a coincidence, right? This is all like you and I being here right now. Like there is way more to this that we will maybe never understand. You know, like we obviously flew in a similar circle and like, you know, like had a chance to meet each other. But like this, we are exactly where we're supposed to be right now, here. And the more and more and more you can lean into presence. And let me just drop a book for you right now. If you've not read The Power of Now, if you're somebody dealing with some anxiety and some struggling with, you know, anxiety is like sort of the stepping away from presence and kind of the worry of what's ahead, or that's one way of describing it, right? The Power of Now is a wonderful book on learning about building more presence and becoming more presence and stepping into presence. And then you're more receptive when somebody throws that book at you, right? Like not throws the book at you in a bad way, but like hands you the book of the China study or whatever it is, right? Like, maybe the Type 1 Determination by Lauren Plunkett. When somebody hands you that book, you're going to be ready. You're going to say, hey, yes, let me check this book out. It seems like it's really working for you. Let me pay attention to this book too, right? So I think that that's a sort of a one thing that I've really taken out of my yoga practice and how I manifest, how I practice it off the mat is in the staying as present as possible. You know, it's not foolproof. I mean, believe me, like I feel like I'm like a recover, like I always say I'm like a recovering perfectionist, right? Because I'll always have those tendencies. It's just a matter of how aware I am of them and how they're impacting my life. Same thing with my anxiety. You know, even being treated for anxiety, like I do take a medication for anxiety because it helps me to maintain my presence so that I can be the highest functioning person I can be. And I've, you know, tried it on, tried off, tried on, you know, been on and off of it over the years, but like it allows me to be my best functioning self. What a gift, right? To be able to have that perspective, that a support that you can use. It's a tool I choose to put in my tool belt to help me be the best version of myself. And but again, through the lens of my presence, like when I was suffering my most with my anxiety, I had too much stigma around it. I had too much worry around it. I was like, I can't go there. I don't want to do that. Or like, you know, you tell yourself these stories that aren't even true, right? Like, it's like, no, guess what? There's something there, a tool that can help you. And so, you know, that's something else that like, I hear a lot of women really rejecting certain types of treatments, you know, and I can understand why. I can understand why you might not want to put things in your body or it comes up around fertility treatments. I was really struggling with the idea of going down a route that involved hormonal treatments and things like that. It was a very big question mark for me. I hadn't come to any real conclusion on whether or not I was going to say yes to that.
Mm-hmm.
One step at a time basis, right? And for me, my surgery was very supportive in that I was able to have that natural conception that I was very hopeful for.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that anxiety and depression and self-talk,
Mm-hmm.
there is layers deep to that,
Totally.
right? And kind of this trifecta of if these three things are interacting together, you could talk your way into something that is just
Oh,
going
yeah,
to be laying in bed for the day, but you also might be able to talk yourself out of bed as well.
that's
You
right.
know, this kind of goes in both directions. No day is perfect, but hey, yeah, being present and hold on a minute, what's eating me?
Mm-hmm.
I like to throw that out there as, you know, as we talk about food nutrition a lot, is what else is eating you? Because it's not
Yeah,
the food. It's not the
right.
food, right? Yeah, there's
Yeah.
something impacting your choices and your attitude in this moment. And to be in the position that you were in how much self-talk would have just been threading through you all the time. What's today going to be like? I've got to heal. I've got to rest and repair and go through all these things. I can imagine kind of what was going in your mind as like the day of the surgery was approaching, being COVID, the COVID
Yeah.
environment that we were
Yeah.
in. We're in such an impactful stage of growth now because of how much we've been through in the last 5 years. And there's a bit of a healthcare awakening going on right now also. And I really think that lifestyle is at the center of this because of stories like yours, experiences like mine that have been 30 years in the making.
Sure.
So, right, like this is vital. This is why we're here to talk about what we are, because of how incredibly deep and profound and life-changing it actually is. And it takes that much time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. Healing is an ongoing process, but remember, our bodies are immensely capable of healing. And that is, we have such capacity for healing in every area, physically,
Mhm.
mentally, emotionally, spiritually,
Mhm.
all the traumas. Like it's all healable. It's all possible. It's a matter of, again, the right tools at the right time, knowing your worth, knowing and really like finding a way to believe that you're worthy of healing and, our physical bodies. I mean, the things I have seen people heal from, and even my own bodies, like the cellular timestamp that I had. I mean, that was truly the visible and physical takeaway from what
Mm.
my doctor saw inside of my body. That's just something, those are the things that when like, again, like we've had such great anecdotal experience. We've seen so many people showing us their results. I mean, I have so many incredible, inspiring stories. I don't even know where to begin, really. But our bodies are just designed for healing and wellness. And when you take away the things that have caused the illness and the disease, and you start putting in the nutrient dense plant based foods that are full of nutrients that are designed for cellular repair, that's their
Mhm.
job, all these micronutrients, right? And we're going to get into
Mhm.
these topics. But when you start putting those foods in your body knows what to do with it. Your body's going to know. Our
Mhm.
bodies are very wise. They're full of wisdom and, like I said, capable of healing. And so don't, let's not underestimate what you're capable of, what your body is physically capable of.
I hear you saying that we are perennials. We are a lot like plants that can come back,
That's right.
right? We eat the plants that come
Yes,
back every year. I'm thinking
that's
what is
right.
right? What is in the soil or what needs to be harvested.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
there's some things in common there going on. I
No
just
doubt.
think of like, oh, I was photosynthesizing today, was I not? When I was sitting
Yeah.
in the sun. So I think that what you're saying also is that we've got hot takes today as far as get yourself immersed in the China study, or even just check out the main points of that. The power of now is the other one if you need a little bit of a mental uplifting. And the other one here is if you don't think you're capable of healing, prove yourself wrong.
Think again. Yeah.
Yeah, think again. Prove yourself wrong. Prove us wrong,
Yeah.
really, that
Yeah.
you can shift gears and look at your own health from a different perspective. Start shifting some things around. And Team Kylie,
Thanks. Thank you. Oh my gosh.
right? Yeah.
Wow. What a story. What a day. Also we're still working on some things behind the scenes. We're going to be dropping out some new info in the upcoming weeks and some exciting new places where you can connect with us. And we want to hear from you. And that's the biggest reason. We're building a website. We want to be able to connect with you, our listeners. We want to hear from you. We want to hear questions, feedback. We want to interact with you. So just know that's coming. We don't have that set up just yet, but it's on its way very soon, probably by next week's episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, but we do have a Facebook group, Green Glow Lifestyle. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
interested in interacting with us there, come join us. It's a group, for us to have these discussions. We'll be putting in maybe some clips from the episodes or some takeaways. We'll put in our hot takes.
It's a fan club. Yeah, it's a fan club. And it's actually where you can see us commenting and see us posting things. And it's kind of a feel good space where you'll get some possible motivation and some giggles out of it. Anything that
Cat
I,
pictures.
right, anything I post is usually worth a giggle. I think I've got, J-Lo in there telling you to woman up or something. That was the most recent one that that's what it's for. So if you're really into this and you can tell which direction we're going to be heading in, hey, I'm going to future cast for a second here. If you just listened to like episode 40 and now you've gone back and you've checked us out from the beginning, now you know.
Yeah.
what we've got in store for you. And that would be the most exciting part. You want to learn more about Kylie today, then you just had it, didn't you? So that's kind of the nice part
Deep
is,
dive.
yeah, there's deep
Hey,
dives, there's hot takes, there's a lot of good info
that's right.
in the queue.
Absolutely. And check out show notes for links to all of our, the things that we brought up, the resources from today, China study, and other little tidbits that we'll put in there. And next week, Lauren, we're coming. We're gonna hear from you. We're gonna hear
Me.
the whole Lauren story. Yeah,
Oh, the whole
get to
one.
know
I better
Lauren.
start
We're
writing
gonna
down
we're
some
gonna get
stuff.
in it. We're gonna get in it. It's a great story.
You
I've
all
been
know that
lucky
I
to hear
can't
it.
sing, so
But
just
yeah,
we won't bring that up again.
can we talk about you becoming a DJ? Is that on?
No, because I can't stay up past 10 p.m.
Okay. All right. Well,
Well,
good night.
sometimes. Yeah, so when in Florida,
When in Florida.
I tend to stay up a little later. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yes.
that
Okay,
longer here.
Kylie.
Yeah.
I mean, you gave
Thank you.
us so much. I know. Thank you. Is there anything else that we got to part with today on Kylie Buckner?
Listen, we are here to glow, right?
Yeah.
And like, I am ready for the next, decade and see how we glow up in the next decade. And that is what, like, let's get our glow on. Let's just do it. We're doing it.
We're
We're
doing it.
glowing. Glow.
Okay. You
Thank
have
you.
it. Thank you. We'll
Have
see you
a
next
great
week.
day. Okay.